Hey, welcome to Cheaper Jeeper TV, the show that helps you get the most for your money so that you get the most for your Jeep. Hi, I'm Dino, your host. Glad to see you here. On this week's episode, we're going to talk about the installation of the RuggedRidge HD full width bumper. Stay with us. I thought it would be bigger than this. Alright, in this video you're going to get to see the Jeep with the stock bumper and then with the steel bumper, and then you can decide which one looks better, and you could by all means feel free to comment in the comment section below. The reason why I decided to go with the steel bumper is when people were commenting, for example on the Ardbeg video here, they were making some good suggestions about when you're going off-road, don't go alone, or if you do, make sure you have a winch so you can get yourself out of trouble. And in keeping with the theme of off-road gear, I decided I would get a winch. The first option I considered was a plate that mounts on top of the stock bumper. It bolts to the frame and sits above the bumper and wedges into these tow hooks, and then the winch sits on top of that. It's the more cost-friendly option. However, I didn't like the way that looked, and I didn't want the winch sitting right in front of the radiator, right in front of the grille. So I decided to spend a few $100s more, get a full width steel bumper where the winch sits down, recessed into the bumper, so it'll not block the radiator or the front grille, and it looks really good. And you also have the option of getting the hoop bar or the winch protector. So with that being said, for this video I'm going to have to jack up the Jeep so I can get underneath with the camera to take some shots. So the Jeep will be up on jack stands and the tires will be up. So if you were taking off your stock bumper and installing an aftermarket bumper, you don't necessarily have to take the wheels off. That's just for the purposes of shooting the video. Let's get started. As we are ready to remove the stock bumper, we should get our tools set up in order of need. The first step is to remove the splash guard by removing this plastic plug with our panel removal tool, and then this plug. And don't forget, there's 6 more plugs on the back of the front bumper. On these plugs, once you lift the middle piece, you could pull out the whole plug with your hand. Then just lift it out and put it in a safe place. And next, it's time to remove the lower splash guard. We'll have to remove those plastic plugs and 2 screws like this that connect this splash guard to the skid plate. You'll need a 7mm socket for that. And then with your panel removal tool, remove the 6 plugs like this. You'll have to make your own sound effects. Once removed, just put it away to a safe place. Our next step is to disconnect the LED fog light wiring harness. I was surprised to see the dust on the inside surface of the connector, and I'm going to speak to that in this week's tip segment, so make sure you stick around. The next step is to remove the skid plate by removing 2 16mm bolts with your socket and then tapping up on the skid plate to release it from the 2 tabs holding it on to the frame horns. And then finally, remove 4 nuts per side of each frame horn, which are holding the bumper on.
Once you've removed the 4 nuts per side, you're ready to remove the front bumper. Special shout out and thank you to my son and his friend for helping me out today. And with those 5 steps, we've removed the front bumper, which comes in at a hefty 40 pounds. But with the bumper removed, we still have a few steps ahead of us if we want to salvage the LED fog lights. So using the panel removal tool and the same technique as before, remove the 4 plastic plugs on each side. Once we've removed these covers, we've exposed our LED lights, but we still have some parts to remove to access the harness. You could start by removing the 8 nuts from the metal crash plate. To lift the crash plate out of the way, the LED fog lights must first be unplugged from the harness. And then finally disconnect the harness where it is connected to the metal crash plate at each LED light. You can now remove the metal crash plate, which gives you access to the 4 screws at each LED light. Use a 7mm socket to remove them and take out the LED lights. In this clip, I'm orienting the bumper upright just to illustrate what part of the LED light is the bottom, so make sure you note that. And of course, put these away somewhere in a safe place because we'll be using them in our new bumper. We still want to access the whole wiring harness, so we'll first remove the tow hooks. Next, a large number of 7mm screws have to be removed from the back side of the bumper and the bottom side of the bumper that are holding 2 pieces of the plastic bumper together. Finally, we now have access to the wiring harness that we will remove with a panel removal tool. And thankfully, our disassembly of the front stock bumper is done and we're ready to install the RuggedRidge HD full width bumper. RuggedRidge HD full width bumper comes with 2 different size holes in the tow hooks for different size shackles, attachment points for high lift jacks, protection for fog lights, recessed winch plate, and it looks pretty nice. Plastic retainer clips you see there hold the bolts in place during installation. If during shipping they slip off, you'll need to put them on. I also got the single hoop winch protector. And you see here, I'm just spraying some crown rust proofing to help stave off the rust. And just as a preventative measure, I'm spraying rust proofing on all of the metal components that will be touching each other. This is the hardware that we'll use to attach the hoop to the bumper. Instructions call for some blue Loctite on the threads. Orient the hoop to be leaning in the forward direction, and then tighten the bolt snugly, as you won't be able to do so once it's installed. I am also applying some rust proofing where the bumper will be mated to the frame. Dielectric grease will be applied to all the connector mating surfaces to help keep out dust and moisture, not where the electrodes make contact. Now it's time to attach the LED fog lights to the bumper. The round adjustment knob indicates the bottom of the light, orienting it properly with the bumper. The instructions from RuggedRidge indicate that a metal bracket is to be used to assist in mounting the LED lights. This is in reverse. The metal brackets are for those who have the incandescent fog lights. The bolt, the lock washer, the washer, and the 7mm nut are provided to mount the LED fog lights. I would caution from over tightening these nuts, as the housing for the LED lights is plastic, so blue Loctite is suggested. The order of installation is washer, lock washer, and then nut. Once they're all tightened down, you can now mount the bumper to the Jeep. When looking underneath, you could see two bolts sticking through on the outside edge of the passenger side. And on the other side, you could see a bolt sticking through the frame member, and the hole is to receive a bolt into a welded nut, just like you see here on the driver's side. And then here on the driver's side outer edge, you can see the other two bolts sticking through. Connect the bumper using the 18mm bolt by inserting the lock washer and then the washer, and then bolting it through the frame into the bumper. And then repeat on the driver's side. With these 18mm bolts holding the bumper securely in place, you can attach the other two nuts to the inside of each frame member. And now we'll turn our attention to the outer sides of each frame member, and we're going to remove this bumper support bracket in order to make room for the bracket that comes with the hoop. Now you can install the hoop bracket to the large 18mm bolts for the bumper and the two smaller bolts for the bracket connected to the hoop. The hardware for the smaller bolts came with the brackets with the hoop, and for the larger bolts, the nuts came with the bumper. When filming, I forgot to reinstall the outer frame bumper support, but I went back to do it, but I don't have footage of that. And with everything in place, firmly tighten all the nuts. And here I am repeating the process on the outer driver's side of the frame member. Sometimes it's helpful to tighten one of the bolts to bring the other bolt forward. Similarly, as on the passenger side, after filming, I went back and added the outer frame bumper support bracket that I forgot. Once you have everything in place, it's time to tighten the nuts. At this stage, just go around to all the bolts on the bumper and make sure that they're secured and tightened according to spec. I'll have a table of torque specs in the description section of the video. And now it's time to connect the wiring harness for the LED fog lights. We're almost there. I'm also pretty happy that I coated all the mating surfaces of the connectors with dielectric grease to prevent the intrusion of dust and moisture into the connectors. I chose to pack dielectric grease into the back end of these connectors as well. And now with the harness all connected, it's time to gather up the extra wire and secure it beneath the winch plate using zip ties. I'll be reorganizing all of this when I install my winch and its wiring with the winch plate bracket. The bumper came with some extra plastic plugs to plug up the holes that we didn't use. These are the holes for the striker bar, as I used a single hoop. The other remaining holes are for the winch fair lead, so I'll leave them open for now. As we saw earlier, the stock bumper weighed about 40 pounds, but our new steel bumper comes in at 66 pounds. That's only a 16-pound difference. I only have to take into account the weight of the winch now. So there's the before and after. Let me know what you think. I actually really love it. Can't wait to install the winch, so make sure you subscribe and click the alert bell so you'll be alerted when that video comes out. But for now, let's move on to our tip segment. Now for some cheaper Jeeper tips. The tip this week pertains to what I noticed at the electrical connectors when taking the stock bumper off. You could notice there's a lot of dust on the inside of the connectors and not so much on the fog light connectors. But either way, my intention and the tip that I have to share for you is that I use dielectric grease to help prevent the intrusion of dust and moisture into the electrical connections on the mating surfaces and also in the back of the connectors where the wires are going in. And now for subscribers' tips. Hey Cheaper Jeeper TV, you should get a snatch strap for your kit, as it is likely the strap you would use most often. Signed, Scott from the Hamilton Area Jeep Club on Facebook. Hey Scott, thank you so much for writing in after watching the Essential Off-Road Recovery Gear video. It would have been great if Gear America had it as part of their kit, but that's okay, I'll just go find one on sale elsewhere. But I wouldn't limit the kit to just having the snatch strap. As noted in the newbie video, when the recovery Jeep is on terra firma, a tow strap is the tool of choice. I just want to make sure I'm ready for all possibilities because as I mentioned in the video, you need the gear before you need the gear. Anyway, thanks so much for writing, and if any of you have some tips that you want to share, please feel free to include them in the comments section below and I'll use them in an upcoming episode. Hey, well that's it for this week's episode of Cheaper Jeeper TV. It was quite a big job, but it was well worth it when you look at how beautiful that steel bumper is. I'm looking forward to installing the winch recessed into that plate. If you found this video interesting, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do so you'll be notified when the next video is released. Until then, I'm Dino for Cheaper Jeeper TV. Be well, stay safe, take care.